Released October 13th, 2016 by developers and publisher CCP, Eve Gunjack is an arcade-style VR action game for the PSVR, Gear VR, Oculus, and HTC Vive. Gunjack feels like a modern-day VR take on games like Space Invaders, Galaga, and Asteroids. It was built from the ground up for VR and was released in a time where VR was still fairly new and uncharted tech, where a lot of the games being released were considered nothing more than glorified tech demos. Set in the Eve universe, you step in the combat boots of a Gunjack. You man a turret and basically destroy everything that comes at you in a bid to protect your crew and station.
Destroy as many of the asteroids as you can.
Gameplay-wise, it feels like what I said before, a wave shooter. Most times, you'll be defending your mining platform against a swarm of seemingly never-ending alien attackers, and there are times where you'll be just defending it against incoming asteroids. It's a very basic game with pick up and play mechanics, but this isn't a bad thing by any stretch. Eve Gunjack doesn't really have a story. You'll be able to pick up bits and pieces of what I just told you regarding the mining platform under attack, while in-game listening to the guy who taught you everything you know, but he doesn't say that much.
If they get past you, we're all dead. So don't let them through, okay?
This again is not a bad thing, unless you entered into the world of Gunjack completely oblivious to what it is. If you got into this expecting complex, engaging lore and gameplay mechanics, then you made a terrible mistake. If you did some research before buying, as every consumer should, then you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. Gunjack is as arcade-like as a shooter comes. The controls are the most entertaining part. You simply use your head to aim. Wherever you look, that's where your shots will be fired. You'll have a small arsenal to choose from, and I use the word choose lightly, as you have your main cannons. But once in a while, you destroy an enemy and a power-up pops out in the form of these cubes. The problem I found with this was, you can't store these weapons really. Let's say you got one of these, and you'd like to continue using your regular guns until you meet up on a boss. You can't. You either use it or leave it alone, as it will be the only available weapon until it's empty. You can save the health regen cubes, but not the weapons. You can also use scraps from your fallen enemies to fortify your turret. Here's the thing though, and I should just bundle most of the flaws in this title under one umbrella. Gunjack is short. It's over in no time. You have 20 levels to blast through. On the last, you fight this boss, beat him, then you're treated to an abrupt ending, then the interactive end credits roll. And because of this, most of the flaws aren't really flaws. Limited weapon selections, yeah, we only have a few weapons to choose from. The enemy types, although reasonably varied, are a bit repetitive. And like I said, there's no real story, but the game is short and not difficult. So to ask for more body than what's presented here may be a bit unreasonable. If the game was longer, then more substance would have been needed to keep the player engaged. But because it's over before you know it, I'll make all that slide, except for the inability to select weapons. That could have been included without a problem. A bit more on the difficulty. The game starts off like a cakewalk, and it never really presents much more of a challenge until you get to the final level and face off against the final boss. The final boss isn't that hard either. Once you figure out its pattern and understand how to rip it apart, it too is over in no time.
We're still alive! You're the best Gunjack I've ever trained.
Where sound is concerned, the game is supposed to have music, but I heard none during combat, and barely heard any otherwise.
Pirate presence in this system is heating up. It's not going to be a walk in the park. Not that I have any idea what a walk in the park would feel like.
Your captain or chief or whoever this guy is speaks a bit with a 90s action movie vibe, and that's appreciated since there's no music, but perhaps the devs could have expanded his vocabulary in a bid to keep things interesting.
If they get past you, we're all dead. So don't let them through, okay?
Again though, not a big deal, as it's over in the blink of an eye. While going through this short campaign, you may get a bit of a grindy feel coming from the star system used. You unlock the next level by using the stars you gained previously, but sometimes Although this game isn't difficult, you may come up short in stars and have to replay a level or two to catch up. This doesn't happen often, but I personally hate backtracking. I loathe doing things over once I believe it's done, so I could have done without this. It feels like a feeble attempt at padding content. The visuals are good for the title this is and when it was released. There are blurry textures and the backgrounds are like paintings, void of life, no movement. But the visuals remain satisfactory in my eyes. The attention paid to details like your character seated in his turret to the actual inside of the turret itself is appreciated. The enemies may or may not have been designed very well, but it's hard to tell as most of them move so fast. But even the bigger and slower guys look adequately designed. All the particle effects from muzzle flashes to explosions also add to the experience nicely.
You did it? You actually did it! Tonight the booze is on me!
Gunjack is more than a tech demo. Just enter into it knowing that it is nothing more than a VR wave shooter though. But it does have an endgame, and this works for me. I'd much prefer to play a short experience with a conclusion than an endless shooter. It's just a me thing. I like to know that once I've started something, it can be finished. There's just a certain level of hopelessness that comes with the alternative. Eve Gunjack is great for the seasoned, or dare I say, hardcore gamers, and the casuals as well. It's also great as an introduction to VR, as although only a few titles have made me nauseous in the past, Gunjack gave me zero motion sickness, so noobs to VR need not worry.
Nice shooting.
As with all my recent reviews, no meters, no scores. I review, you decide. Thank you for watching. Should you like my content, feel free to like, share, comment, and subscribe. You can also hit the notification bell. If on the other hand I pissed you off, then we all know where to find the various hate buttons, don't we? Either way, I won't hold it against you. Our game is never over.
Bam, bam, bam. And then there were none. Time to call it a day, Slick.